Illegal immigration and secure borders have been the rallying cry for conservatives for a while, but that cry has reached a crescendo over the last couple of years, which has made some people turn their focus to undocumented workers and what they can and can't do legally in Idaho. And since 2020, Idaho has considered loosening those rules when it comes to driving privileges. Advocates say creating this program will serve as a major tool for the undocumented population in Idaho who contribute in our communities every single day. Joe Paris following that and a few other items at the State House for us. And Joe, on the restricted driver's licenses, do undocumented workers simply just not have an option right now to drive legally?
Yeah, that's correct. And because of that, there are concerns about undocumented workers driving without insurance, without proper training, and fears that they could get pulled over without a license, and that situation could quickly destroy their entire family life. So Senate Bill 1081 creates a restricted driver's license program that allows undocumented workers to get a driver's license that is unique to that classification. The arguments from supporters: creating the program will make roads safer by making sure undocumented drivers are up on rules of the road and whatnot, but it also makes sure that they can get insurance. Now, legislation spells this out. The restricted driver's license would be limited to driving purposes only. It would have a distinguishable appearance and specific words of limitation on it to make sure that the card is not used for voting, to buy firearms, or to exercise any other rights or privileges that are reserved to American citizens. Again, this is an effort that's been hit hard by advocates since 2020. Previous efforts have failed. Today, the Senate Transportation Committee heard from both sides of the issue. Let's start with supporters who say this will help them and their communities.
As a son of immigrants, I can tell you the passage of this legislation would bring hope to the undocumented residents of Idaho. Too many people in our communities drive in fear every day of being pulled over, detained, then deported.
I'm talking about the fear of being deported for taking a sick relative to the hospital, or the fear of being deported for taking children to school. Everyone should have the right to access a driver's license, regardless of documentation status. This bill would help individuals in the state of Idaho not by only allowing them to get insurance, but by also helping them understand the basic rules of the road through driver's education.
For individuals desiring to get green cards can be very difficult, and it is a time-consuming process that can take decades in some cases. These restricted driver's license gives the opportunity to these residents working on farms and dairies in Idaho a way to be safe and insured while driving on the roads.
Lawmakers also heard from organizations and individuals that are against the idea for several different reasons. And like in recent years, with this effort, the Idaho Sheriff's Association has come out against the concept. And law enforcement in general has spoken out about giving people who are not legal citizens legal documents. There's concerns about fraud. We also heard from an Idaho woman who says that the program like this, it can create dangerous issues and allows people already breaking the law to get away with more. She says she lost her son to a driver who was undocumented.
I don't believe that this bill here, if approved today, is going to change anything on the roads other than some vehicles could then be insured where the insurance companies would cover them. It doesn't even address all of the CDLs. This doesn't fix that. You still would not be able to get a commercial driver's license.
Lawlessness should never be rewarded. These people are here illegally. They have already broken our laws. Handing them a driver's license does not mean that they will suddenly become a law-abiding citizen. They cannot read our signs, they do not respect our laws, and obviously many of them do not value our lives. Most of the farmers and companies pushing for this legislation are million and billion-dollar companies. They can afford to provide transportation for their employees, or better yet, hire legal ones.
So after more than an hour of public testimony, lawmakers gave their 2 cents on voting to advance the issue or not.
I wish this were a perfect bill. I wish this were a perfect immigration bill. We can't solve that here. I've heard the word reality a lot here today, and I think that's where we are. The reality is these workers are here, and I think it's our best bet to help them make our roads safer by passing this.
I don't think illegal immigration would be a bad deal. I mean, would be a big deal if it wasn't for the fact we have employers illegally hiring these people. So I find it difficult to reward bad behavior, especially when I've had so many illegal immigrants come to me, tell me about the hurdles that they've had to pass through, how hard they had to work to get here, to be here legally, and we're just going to start giving privileges away.
All right, so where did this all go? In the end, the Senate Transportation Committee a short time ago, they did something unique. They voted to send the legislation to the full Idaho Senate, but with no recommendation. So in most cases, committees will send legislation, they'll pass it with a do pass recommendation. Committee members basically conceded that a conversation with the whole Idaho Senate on the topic seemed appropriate. So the legislation does advance to the full Senate for debate and you would assume a vote, but it still does have a long way to go. But as Committee Chairman Okonowitz said, you're telling me it has a chance. Yes, it does. Also for you at the legislature, some quick notes. Legislation that will soon draw a passionate debate, legislation that deals with minors being taken for abortions. Now, this comes after Idaho changed their abortion laws this last year, making it a crime to get an abortion in Idaho. There are exceptions for the life of the mother and for cases of rape and incest that are reported to law enforcement. Now, this new legislation, House Bill 242, it makes it illegal to take a minor out of state for an abortion without the parent's consent and permission. Bill sponsor, Representative Barbara Ehart, details the idea.
This legislation deals with the trafficking of a minor without the consent of a parent. Without the consent of a parent are the operative words here. And just to be clear, that with the consent of a parent, a child can cross the border and receive an abortion. So we certainly aren't trying to do that. This, you might say, is more of a parental rights piece of legislation, which is something I prefer to bring anyways.
So that legislation was printed and will be back in committee for a full hearing, including public testimony. And finally for you, looking back to yesterday, yes, we saw the ESA debate in the Senate end with legislation being defeated. The question 24 hours ago was, when will new education savings accounts, ESAs, legislation pop up? Well, the answer for you is today. Brian, the House Education Committee early this morning, they heard some concepts and really some presentations about what some legislation in the House could look like. It was really more of an informational session. Look, here's the direction we want to go. So full legislative proposals, and it would be the first introduction of those, are expected coming up on Thursday of this week. So the conversation had a lull for a few hours, but we'll get now a fuller picture on what the new ESA legislation will look like and also kind of the direction that lawmakers are going to go. Again, after seeing the ESA bill defeated in the Senate yesterday, you would imagine that over in the House, they would make some edits to it to make it more passable.
I'm sure there are already some of those edits considered, knowing that that one was getting a lot of pushback on it. So we'll see how it plays out coming up on Thursday. Thanks, Joe.